What's going on, guys? Vegan here, and today I am really excited because I finally get to talk about this video and expose it for how absolutely salty it is. So, this dude called King Kong 19100, he tried to give points on why Kong should be able to beat Godzilla in the upcoming legendary film. The video is called How Kong Can Beat Godzilla. Now, I feel like a lot of people are going to be bringing up the title of it saying, oh, he doesn't say that Kong can for sure beat Godzilla 100% of the time. Well, he's made other videos saying that Kong would completely destroy Godzilla, and he believes that with his quote-unquote logic, that he would win without a doubt, pretty much. And before anyone says anything, yes, this video is still relevant. I even asked him directly about how, even though this video was made even before King of the Monsters came out, he said that he proved a lot of things in this video that ended up to be true. Like, he proved that King Kong would be nearly Godzilla-sized, even though, no shit, we all knew that Kong was gonna grow. It's even shown in the cave paintings that he's near Godzilla size. Anyway, let's just get into his introduction and then we'll get into the meat of this video. He starts the video off by giving us some ground rules about how we're only going over the legendary versions of each character, which obviously, but he also says that this Godzilla can't regenerate, which is absolutely false, especially since we've seen in Godzilla Aftershock that Godzilla's scales were completely blown off by Muto Prime, and he regenerated them within minutes, if not seconds afterwards. Says that he won't tolerate disrespect even though you're directly disrespecting my boy, so I gotta come at you, bro. He constantly brings up the fact that Kong is still growing and he is a quote-unquote baby, even though he doesn't consider the fact that Godzilla is also growing. He grew from 2014 to 2019 very significantly, and he's even gaining even more abilities as proven with Aftershock, where he gained a nuclear pulse ability. He made about 4 videos on King Kong's height. So I went ahead myself to try to get a definitive measurement so we can measure the two. So in 1973, Kong was around 104 feet, and in 1995, Kong was around 200 feet. So that means Kong in 22 years grew 96 feet, which would mean for every 1 year, Kong grows 4.4 feet tall. That would mean 25 years went by between 1995 and 2020, which means that Kong would grow around 310 feet tall, if we assume grows at the same consistency. But your logic and headcanon keeps insisting that he is 340 feet, so I might as well just go with that one. But let's go over Godzilla's height since, we want to be fair. So Godzilla in 2014 was 354 feet, and in 2019 he was 393 feet, which means in 5 years Godzilla grew 39 feet, which means in 1 year Godzilla grows 7.8 feet, which is almost double the amount Kong grows at, which means by 2020 Godzilla will be around 400 feet tall. You can really see how biased he is when he constantly brings up Kong being a baby and still growing when Godzilla is obviously still growing himself. And he's also brought up arguments like, oh, well, it was the nuke that made him grow, even though his official height was shown by scanning him at the very beginning of the movie, which means he grew even before he got hit by the nuke. There's no such thing as getting old for Godzilla, as he is an eternal being and he's been around for millions of years. So it's questionable whether he'd ever die of old age. So there's not really an argument there. He also brings up the fact that, well, the writers obviously want to write the film so that they're both equals to make it a good film. The writers can do whatever they want. If they write Godzilla opening Kong's asshole within the first 10 minutes and then they team up to fight Mechagodzilla or whatever, they can. Your prediction, if you were being logical, should be based on evidence and feats. The feats that Kong and Godzilla have done in their own movies, and as I'm gonna prove, all the evidence points to Godzilla completely destroying Kong. Saying the writers are forced to make the fight even is untrue and illogical. So it's very unreliable to say, oh, well, the plot's gonna write him to be stronger. He also, before he brings up any of Kong's feats, he tries to downplay Godzilla's feats, as he tries to make it so that he tries to work around the whole meteor feat where Godzilla was shown blatantly on panel to tank a meteor. He says, oh, it's not canon because it's inconsistent, even though it's been stated to be official canon and a prequel to the 2014 film. Just because there are a few continuity changes, like Monarch being founded a couple years earlier, and the Shinomura not being mentioned in 2014, which, why would they? Those are just continuity errors. They're not like, oh, now that part of the lore doesn't exist because there's one inconsistency. The writers have even gone out of their way to try to explain away these small inconsistencies, such as Monarch being a secret scientific organization, so they're not going to tell everybody everything, like how they were founded or when they were founded. And by using your logic, Kong Skull Island was also inconsistent about Monarch being founded, since in Skull Island they've shown ID cards of Monarch that are from 1952, even though in 2014 Monarch was only said to have been founded in 1954 when Godzilla first appeared. So by your logic, is Kong Skull Island also not canon? Like, he really likes to cherry pick. He also really can't wrap his brain around the idea that, oh, well, it doesn't make any sense for the meteor to not do anything to Godzilla because he gets directly hurt by the Mutos in the first movie. Like, they're beating him up and everything. Like, how can those guys hurt him but the meteor can't? You can tell that he hasn't really looked into the whole power scaling community, which would dictate, hey, logically, you would see maybe the Mutos hits are even more powerful than the meteor. I know, crazy, right? It's weird how you can connect the dots like that. He also says that Godzilla was gonna die to the Mutos if Ford didn't blow up the female's nest. When Godzilla, as soon as he got serious, was able to easily kill the Mutos in like one shot each. Also, he claims that Godzilla was probably hurt heavily by the nuke that they shot at him, and he was probably beat up, and that's why he swam away. Actually, it was said to be multiple nukes, and the only reason that they used multiple nukes was they were trying to directly kill Godzilla, and they couldn't. The only reason Godzilla came up was because of all the radiation the nukes were giving off. And so once he consumed all the radiation, that's why he swam away. He was not at all hurt by these nukes, which are also stated to be in the megaton and kiloton ranges. Alright, now we're getting to the salty rant, which is the main meat of this entire video that he has. So, he does the typical versus battle format, where he goes through like strength and speed and durability, so hang tight everyone. So his evidence for Kong being stronger than Godzilla is that Kong was able to easily throw a monster equal size and near weight to Kong, and Godzilla in the 2014 movie didn't try to lift the Mutos, or apparently he couldn't based off his headcanon. Godzilla's been fighting for millions of years, and he is smart enough to know that just his regular attacks are far more powerful than anything that gravity is going to do to him if he throws him around or anything. He claims that he's not a fanboy near the beginning, and is logical when he goes crazy over Kong picking up a rock while Godzilla's over here tanking nukes and meteorites, but he's like, well, it could be non-canon, whereas he goes crazy over Kong throwing him up against the wall, Kong throwing a monster up against the wall. He says stuff like, oh, well, you go try and throw somebody by the leg into a wall. Well, how about you try to survive a goddamn... Like, it's just insane and crazy with his logic, and I cannot believe people actually believe some of his points. If Kong's best feat is lifting a boulder that weighs around 100 tons, then that's not going to do anything to Godzilla, who can tank thousands, if not millions of tons of force, just by the nukes. He also said Kong win due to him lifting a 100-ton monster and possibly being able to lift Godzilla himself, even though Godzilla was able to match and overpower Ghidorah, who was going to reshape and transform the entire planet. So him saying that a lot of his points are proven by the future movies, it's actually disproven, because Godzilla is shown to be even far stronger than in the 2014 movie. Next, he went over the intelligence category. He said that Godzilla isn't as smart as Kong because Kong knew not to wake up an enemy, and he knew to help an animal crying for help, and he attacked the dude who was making noise, and he uses rocks, trees, and chains in fights, and Kong saved a girl from drowning because he knew that she would run out of breath. And he also says that most humans aren't able to do these things. So he's claiming that humans aren't smart enough to help an animal or use weapons in a fight. Are you a part of the same species as us? Because we're able to create giant structures and complicated technology, but no, we can't understand that a girl will be drowning. It doesn't make any sense. Absolute Kong wank at its finest. Either way, Godzilla has shown far more intelligent feats than this, and he gets heavily downplayed for his intelligence. Godzilla knows the most radioactive spots on the planet, and tanked a nuke blast just to feed off of it. He knew that the humans were just scared and attacked him out of fear, so he didn't bother them. And Godzilla strategized by knowing Ghidorah has an advantage in the air, so he fought him in the water and nearly killed him with that tactic that he just thought of on the fly after only fighting him once. And Godzilla saves time by swimming around the world, by swimming through the holes in the earth, which even Monarch's most intelligent scientists didn't even consider. So Godzilla might even be smarter than Monarch scientists, whereas Kong has not displayed any level of intelligence above that. Even a normal human was able to outsmart him, whereas Godzilla was able to outsmart humans. Godzilla can also find weaknesses in his enemies and quickly overpower them. Now he goes over durability. He says Kong wouldn't get one-shotted by the atomic breath because he's survived burns before, even though Godzilla's atomic breath is comparable, if not more powerful than a goddamn atomic bomb. He says Kong wasn't really able to burn by the napalm, and even after that, he says, oh, well, Kong didn't get burnt by the napalm. It was because it burned the oxygen in the air. That's why he got knocked out. Even though napalm burns at around 2,760 degrees Celsius, and burning oxygen out of the air only takes 570 degrees Celsius to do. Even though nuclear bomb radiation can reach around 100 million Celsius, which is way more powerful, several times hotter than napalm or burning oxygen out of the air. Godzilla's also been shown to produce heat that rivals the surface of the sun, which is 5,000 degrees Celsius easily. So Godzilla has more than enough firepower to burn oxygen out of the air and be far more powerful than napalm. He tries to say the atomic breath doesn't burn things, which isn't really true, since all we've seen Godzilla's only shot his atomic breath at other beings that are also impervious to those type of burns, so we don't really get to see Godzilla's atomic breath really burn anything in the films. But just being comparable to an atomic bomb, when it's shown that he's far more powerful than one, and atomic bombs can reach 100 million degrees Celsius, yes, he would be able to completely knock out Kong by burning the oxygen out of the air if he really had to. Godzilla's atomic breath would incinerate Kong on impact, without a doubt. Godzilla's one-shotted multiple Shinomura with it. He also brings up a point where he says that Kong would just adapt to his opponents like he did against the squids with flesh-melting ink. Kong can't adapt in the middle of combat. His species has adapted for millions of years to be impervious to those type of burns, because his species encountered those type of creatures. It's not because, oh, he just can adapt. He can evolve, not adapt, over time, like most creatures. Even if you wanted to say the Meyer squid's ink can melt flesh and boil water, boiling water and melting flesh only requires around 100 degrees Celsius, when even casual nuclear energy heat can... Even low amounts of nuclear energy heat have been able to reach 700 to 900 degrees Celsius easily. So if Kong can be challenged by these other heats, then Godzilla can definitely compete with his own heats. Oh yeah, and by the way, for durability, Godzilla tanked a meteor. Now for speed, he claims that Kong is comparable to the Mutos in speed, even though they are completely different species from completely different times. And he does this really often, where he says, oh, well, this monster was able to do it, so Kong should be able to do it as well, even though Kong has never shown any level of feats comparable to these other characters like Ghidorah, Rodan, or Muto. He also says that Kong has the potential to reach 40,000 to 55,000 tons in weight, which calcs have shown that I'm not even 100% sure. Even through calculations alone, maybe Kong could reach around 500 in weight if you want to assume that his growth rate is the same as his weight increase. Even 1,000 tons is extremely generous for a full-grown Kong, but I'll just go with your headcanon and say, fine, alright, maybe he can become 40,000 to 50,000 tons just to appease your headcanon. He says most people probably think that Kong is going to be just as slow as Godzilla. Actually, no, I think Kong will be a lot slower than Godzilla. He says Kong is faster, even though Godzilla is casually able to attack monsters at Mach speeds easily to one-shot creatures, and was able to react to Ghidorah's gravity beams, which are concentrated beams of electricity. Even if you want to say Kong is as big as the Mutos, it can reach Mach speeds, maybe. Godzilla reacting to lightning easily brings him to thousands of times the speed of sound. So Godzilla is easily thousands of times faster than Kong. He brings up the agility category, even though the only thing that he says in this category is that, oh, well, it's obvious Kong is more agile, so we don't even need to go over it. Even though Godzilla has a pretty impressive agility feat, he automatically gives Kong the point, even though, without even looking at Kong's feats. When Godzilla is easily able to use his claws and teeth in combination with his physical power, and has encountered and kills creatures that use mountains and buildings to gain an upper hand. And he vaporized Muto Prime by throwing him in the air, bending over, and blasting his atomic breath out of his back. An ability that he has never used before, and that was his first time ever using it, and didn't know if it would work, and he still pulled it off. So Godzilla is definitely not going to be completely outclassed by Kong in agility, and he definitely has the creativity to combat beings who can use the environment as an upper hand. He goes over stamina and endurance, which he says the best stamina feat Godzilla has is that he was able to swim long distances. Even though Godzilla swam for hours, fought the two Mutos for hours, killed them, and slept afterwards. He could have kept going. There's this big idea that, oh, well, since Godzilla went to sleep after he fought the Mutos, that meant he was really tired. Godzilla can go for as long as he wants. He was able to fight the Mutos for hours. He only sleeps when he can. If there was 4 other Mutos that came out to fight him after he killed the first 2, he would have, because he only sleeps when he has to. He doesn't really need rest. At least not as much as people claim. Godzilla can swim for days and continue swimming even after he got hit with the oxygen destroyer, which destroys all the oxygen in an area. And Kong got knocked out instantly due to lack of oxygen. So in a battle between stamina, Godzilla can keep going for a while without any oxygen, whereas Kong, he gets knocked out almost instantly. I remember he brought up a point where he said that, oh, well, since Godzilla almost died from Ghidorah dropping him from above the clouds, that it doesn't make sense for him to get hurt by a meteor or nukes. Even though Ghidorah overpowered Godzilla on the way up, and Godzilla was knocked out before Godzilla dropped him from the clouds. And even if you want to say that, Godzilla woke up after the drop almost instantly, and he still survived. Also endured the Castle Bravo nuke with his eyes open, and he still kept fighting. And he's able to regenerate. I remember he says that, oh, since Godzilla has some scars on him, that it's impossible to have regeneration, even though in real life, scars don't completely heal. And then he goes over this weird category called body shape, because he believes since Kong is more built like a gorilla and a human, that he would be easier to fight. He probably believes this because a gorilla's body is more like our own, and he believes that Godzilla has some kind of T-Rex arms and can't grab or throw anything, even though it's been disproven before. Godzilla has been fighting monsters for millions of years and is better adapted to his own body than any other. Even if you want to say Kong has longer arms, Godzilla is far faster and stronger anyway. Kong cannot stop Godzilla's tail. He brings up these maneuvers like Kong can grab Godzilla's tail, even though it was shown to have the force to crush a creature that can output more force than a meteorite. No, Kong would not be able to grab Godzilla's tail when he's putting his full force behind it. Maybe if you stopped fanboying over a fan animation and act like everything in that fight is fact and can happen, maybe you'd come up with a valid argument. If you want to see an accurate animation, I'll put it in the description. It's a really good animation. You only really need to watch part 1, as it's probably the most accurate representation of Godzilla vs. Kong I've ever seen. Even if Kong weighed 55,000 tons, which is headcanon on your part, and there's been nothing to support it, Kong would need to use his full strength to move Godzilla at nearly 100,000 tons. Even so, Kong, through calculations, is more likely to have 10,000 tons strength. Even that is generous though. So Kong cannot trip, grab, or force Godzilla into any counters he'd need him in. Says it'll take Godzilla a while to get back up, even though after he loses all oxygen and is under the ocean pressures, he gets up in seconds. He's not like a damn turtle where it's near impossible to get him up. Just because he weighs almost 100,000 tons doesn't mean it's any more difficult with his muscles to pick himself back up. Godzilla takes on monsters like Mutos and Ghidorah that have extra arms, heads, limbs, and the flight advantage, and Godzilla is still able to come out on top. So Kong having the better body shape is not valid at all, since Godzilla is able to take on monsters with multiple limbs, multiple heads, thinking at once. The last category goes over as experience, which he says that he dismisses Godzilla's millions of years of experience by saying that he slept for most of it, even though that's not as reliable as you think through calculations. So Godzilla slept for 65 million years until 2014. He is at least 200 million years old. Godzilla slept, that would mean Godzilla slept for 32.5% of his life. And Godzilla's been awake for 67.5% of his life. So, which means Godzilla's had at least 135 million years of experience. While at Kong at most has only 90 years, as he's only around 90 years old. For comparison, humans sleep for around 26 years of their life, not counting the amount of time that we spend actually trying to go to sleep. Humans on average live for 79 years, so humans sleep for around 32.9% of their life, which would mean that Godzilla sleeping for 65 million years is actually not even the average for a human. So using that as a point, saying that, oh, well, he slept for most of it, is very weak argument. He also says that Godzilla doesn't face as many enemies as Kong, when even in Godzilla Awakening, he counters monsters like Shinomura, giant apes, giant carnivorous plants, giant flying reptiles, giant shrimp, mammoths, bipedal monsters, T-Rexes, Brontosaurus, and any other Permian period predators. And in King of the Monsters, it shows other titans that lived around Godzilla's time period. So saying that Godzilla has no experience and doesn't really fight as many monsters as Kong is completely... it doesn't make any sense, as he's shown to have millions of more experience than Kong. So, the final tally, Godzilla has the strength, intelligence, durability, speed, agility, stamina/endurance, body shape, experience, brute force, and weapons advantage. And that's just facts. In order for Kong to stand a chance and take a hit from Godzilla, he'd have to get... Alright, let's just say that Kong is 55,000 tons. He's actually, in other videos, wanked Kong to 60,000 tons, which, you know, whatever. Gorillas, on average, can lift around 12 times their weight, but just because, you know, I want to be a Kong fanboy like him, I'm gonna double that and say Kong has double the potential of a normal gorilla. That would mean, let's just wank Kong all the way up to being able to lift 1,320,000 tons. Let's say Kong can lift 1,000,000 tons. You know, why not? Because we're all fanboys, right? To equal Godzilla's nuke feats, Kong would have to get around 300 to 500 times stronger, even if Kong could lift 1,000,000 tons. Which Kong was only able to grow around 44.5 times stronger, and that's just basing it on his weight and height increase, and not counting the fact that Kong was able to lift a 100-ton rock in Skull Island, and has shown no greater feats in the birth of Kong, but whatever. Let's just say he can grow 44.5 times stronger. That would be nowhere near 300 to 500 times stronger, which would mean that he would not be able to match Godzilla's nuke feats. In order for Kong to equal the meteor feats, that would mean that he'd have to lift around 760 trillion tons, which is 760 teratons, which would mean Kong would have to get 500 million times stronger just to be able to match Godzilla's meteor feats, which by all stretches of the imagination should be impossible for this Kong, especially since he's only at most grown around 44.5 times stronger. Godzilla, on the other hand, ever since 2014 at 90,000 tons, that alone would give him enough strength to level an entire town just with his body and size alone. Godzilla being able to tank a meteor back in the Permian period, and then Godzilla being stronger than the meteor in 2014, and then growing to possibly being able to threaten the planet in 2019, which means Godzilla would have to grow around 2,000 to 6,000 times stronger just between the prequel comic 2014 and 2019, which is far above Kong's potential. I hope I've really proved a point here, just how big the difference is, and I don't know. So, in conclusion, Kong can win, but the points that Mr. King Kong 19100 brought up are not valid and toxic at most, and the fact that people somehow bought your blatant Godzilla downplay and Kong wankage just tells me how toxic the Kong fan base can be. He then goes on at the end of the video for the last 5 minutes about Godzilla figures to convince the audience that he's not as biased, which kind of falls flat. He's even made videos trying to build and change Kong into a kaiju made to kill Godzilla by making a kaiju version of Kong that has a bunch of hair on his arms so he can block Godzilla's atomic breath, even though hair is even easier to burn than skin, and we know Godzilla's heat can easily burn through that. Why can't Kong fans just love Kong the way he is? He's a legendary character and kickstarted the monster film genre, really. It's sad how, due to Kong's fans obsessing over finding ways for Kong to beat Godzilla, that it's not actually Godzilla killing Kong's character anymore. for a story that was made to show what happens when beauty kills beast, it created a fan base where fanboys are the beast killing the beauty of Kong's sympathetic story. This ends up in a pattern that Kong has been trapped in for years, of falling off that building and fighting Godzilla, then rebooting to fall off that building again, and now fighting Godzilla. Godzilla series has grown past Kong with their own iconic characters and monsters, while Kong has still been escaping Skull Island for the past several years, since the 30s. Now with Kong Skull Island, Kong has shown growth in being a diverse character, but as soon as Godzilla fights Kong, he's going to be rebooted for another 10, 20, maybe 50 years. And that's because all they want to see Kong do is fight Godzilla instead of giving him a chance to grow as his own character. It would be a great arc for this version of Kong to have started with his parents sacrificing themselves to keep Kong alive, to, at the end of Godzilla vs. Kong, for Kong to sacrifice himself for humanity from Godzilla, who is a symbol for humanity's sins, and being with his parents again. But instead, the writers will probably make Kong win like the original, and giving a disservice to this Kong, and he'll be rebooted again and fight Godzilla again for decades more. Kong's true enemy isn't Godzilla, it's his fans. Beasts killing a beauty of a character. Anyways, that's the end of this video. I believe I've really shut down this video and it's completely trashed. If anybody believes this guy's points anymore, I don't know what to say. Even one of his most recent videos where he tries to give arguments for Legendary's King Kong being nerfed, as he believes that since 2005's Skull Island is quote-unquote cooler and deadlier, that King Kong is even stronger and more powerful than Legendary's King Kong. Which, may I remind you how the 2005 Kong died again? He died from the planes on the Empire State Building and died to bullets and fell off the building. If you're saying Legendary Kong is even weaker than that King Kong, Godzilla is tanked to nukes like it's nothing. So are bullets stronger than nukes now? Alright. I'm done. I'm done. This video's trash. Please like, subscribe. Oh my god.